Okay, well, thank you for coming to this the meeting or our Young Professionals Network meeting. I definitely appreciate Naomi for putting together a lot of this. I know there's not as many people on, but I guess that means we got to do a little bit of marketing next time to get people on. Definitely see a lot of the usual suspects here, which is great. Again, Dave, thanks for joining us. So I definitely would love your insight as we get a little bit further along. Definitely give you some time to speak. Um, so just a little bit about myself, super quick. I think most of the half the people know me. My name is Evan Tom. I've been in real estate for about 4 years now, and I think for anyone that starts a sales job, you got to join a bunch of organizations. So you really don't know why, but you just join some things. And joining Rotary, I actually was in a Rotary Means Business networking event hosted by yours truly, John Strandberg, who is the greatest marketer I think the island has ever seen. And I got roped in by a girl named Kimberly Tom, and I believe at some point we're related. She actually graduated from the same school I did from Punahou and was in my brother's class. So they actually took a little Tom family photo when they graduated, which is kind of cute. But she couldn't, she kept asking me, and eventually I said yes. And out of a lot of my groups that I joined, Rotary is probably the one that I decided on best because, like a lot of us, that you enjoy the people and the cause and the community, and that's why you stay. Um, One of the things, this is maybe for people more my age, so maybe for Nathan specifically, I'm talking to you, that when I was in my Chinese chamber, it used to be that if you ever wanted to get promoted in corporate level, they would force you to join some type of chamber or some way that you would grow leadership. Because when you're in the company, you just don't have an opportunity to reach. You can't get to the next step because you don't get the training. But that's an opportunity, and it's a little bit dated in terms of the information, but the concept is the same that you show your leadership and grow your leadership be, to get you to where you want to go. And especially with a lot of us in Rotary and these other organizations like Dave, he's a Rotary member and he's a CEO. So there's a lot of people that give you the connections or help you along that journey. And especially in a place like Hawaii, super important who you know, that's sometimes where you can get that one leg or foot in the door to get you where you want to go. One of the organizations I did join, and that's part of why I'm speaking today, is Toastmasters. I was like one of the shyest kids when I was in high school, and at some point I decided I didn't want to be the shyest kid, and I decided that maybe I wanted to get a girlfriend. So I started on that journey here, and here I am. This is kind of what I do: is I just talk, and somehow I can make money, which is pretty awesome. But one of the things for Toastmasters that I got as a benefit, I've been with it for 4 years. I'm not the person I was when I started, but like anything else, it's a skill, something you learn. And surprisingly, once I started that journey from Toastmasters, I emceed at one of our Chinese Chamber Christmas events. If you've been watching TV, I'm not too sure how many people watch TV anymore, but I actually emceed for one of our Chinese New Year's events in Chinatown. And recently, a bunch of my clients and friends were like, "Oh, I saw you on the." They're all aunties, by the way. They're all like, "Oh, Evan, I saw you on TV." Like, a very small fraction of a second. I don't know how they caught me, but they were like, "Oh, I saw you on TV." And so these are the things where if you want to get anywhere, and I'm sure Dave will attest to a lot of this, these are the skills you need to get to where you want to go. And Toastmasters is a good community and area for you to start to get there and work on that skill in a safe environment. But the one thing that I noticed, especially about Toastmasters, is a lot of things have changed digitally. You don't, you can essentially write a speech and read it off the screen and no one would ever know. Like I have notes right behind the screen, but no one would ever know. So there's a lot of those aspects even in Toastmasters that have sort of changed. So I'll kind of share my screen to show what it looks like. Is I kind of made notes of what I wanted to talk about. And it's very similar to, when you do have a speech with note cards, but this is basically sometimes what I do when I am presenting online. Now, going back to kind of the Toastmasters concept that, every single meeting you have, it's very structured. And the reason being is it forces everyone to participate in some shape or fashion, and everyone has to do things. And there's a lot of feedback mechanisms involved to allow sort of that process to happen. So as you can see here, almost to the minute it's structured, and the reason being, it all helps to run an efficient meeting. And we all go over the mission of a Toastmasters Club in the beginning, which I won't do, but we do have a theme every meeting. So today, the theme that I'd like to share that's really relates to Dave is begin with the end in mind. And I think it's important because it's very easy to work your way backwards if you sort of know where you want to go. If you want to be like Naomi, what you do is you start to say, how did Naomi get to where she was, and how do I get there? If you want to be like Dave, then, you concept of say, how many years does it take and what do I need to do to get there? A lot of times for us, it's going to be jumping around a lot of companies if we want to get promoted, but still, there is a path to get there. And my Rotary story, without going into too much of like a speech, of how I came to really feel Rotary was when my dad was going through, he had a massive stroke and he passed. And I think the idea of finality really helps to give perspective, but also understand that time is limited. And if you want to accomplish things, that you have a limited time to get there. So with that said, I would like to introduce Dave. I'm just going to read a little bit about you. You are the CEO of Pacific Recreation Company, LLC, which is in the business of building fun. Established in '95 as a full-service recreation and contracting sales company, Dave says, though it might seem a little bit like magic, we provide and install products that create a fun, safe, and inviting atmosphere. Start every project with the end user in mind, whether they're children, youth, or adults. And he's a member of the Rotary Club of Waikiki, has a business management degree from HPU, and graduated magna cum laude. So, I definitely would like to, have him just speak a little bit about, I'm not too sure if Naomi penciled you in or what you wanted to speak about. So I'll just let you take it away with maybe your experiences with Rotary, your experiences and how you became a CEO, and some things of tips that you'd like to share with us as professionals.
Thank you so much, Evan, for that introduction, and especially thank you to Naomi for inviting me here today. When I came into work this morning, I start my work pretty early. I get into the office around 6:30 and check my email, and there was an email from Naomi asking, could I please do this? And it's a great honor to speak to young people at all times. So of course, it's very difficult to say no to the sitting governor, and I did not say no. So she had asked me today to talk a little bit about my philosophy about business, and I jotted a few notes down about that. I do not have a formal presentation here today, but just to piggyback a little bit on what Evan was talking about, when I first came to Hawaii and was starting a business here, one of my mentors, who was the owner of Kinko's, said to me, you got to get out in the community. You got to join organizations. You got to meet people. It's going to increase your business. And so I took that to heart, and I immediately began to join organizations in Mo'iliili, where the business was situated, and start to understand the local community and let them understand the work that we were doing. So I definitely concur with that, Evan. That's a great place to start. Toastmasters also, wow, what a fantastic organization. Really allows people to open up and learn how to speak publicly. So many people, that's the scariest thing they could possibly do. But, if you get comfortable at it, it becomes a lot easier. And so I've learned that through Toastmasters. I did a little bit with Toastmasters myself, and also in the various organizations I've been involved in. One of the things that Toastmasters and Evan talked about is having a structured format, kind of having your notes and thoughts together before you start presenting. And I also advocate for that. When I was president of Rotary, I think I told Naomi recently that I actually had my meetings scheduled down to the minute, my board meetings. The club meetings ran a little bit more open-ended, allow people to interact and do other things. But the board meetings, I really wanted to run tight because I felt that time was super valuable, and we just needed to get to the decision-making part as quickly as we can. But today I'm going to be speaking a little bit more extemporaneously. I don't have a lot really that I've prepared, just some kind of thoughts, not random thoughts, but thoughts about, what it takes to succeed in business and be a good boss. And, let me just start first with Rotary and the four-way test, because those values are so important in business. Yes, they're important in the humanitarian work, the work that we do in the community, but they are ideals that, frankly, I think we should all be living by and infusing into our businesses as well. And, I would say the first thing is to be honest with yourself and to be honest with others. People can read through you pretty quickly if you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. So to me, that is the basis of everything, to be honest in the interactions and the relationships you've got, both with your customers, with your vendors, with your workers. It's super important. One of the other things that I try to do as much as possible is to not expect anything out of others that you're unwilling to do yourself. So if there's and there are things that others can do better than you, yes, that's certainly true. But don't just dish off the nasty stuff to the stressful stuff that you don't want to do. I think you got to be willing to do the hard work yourself. And hopefully the people who work in my company recognize that I'm willing to get in the trenches with them. Respect. Treating people with respect is also super, super important. No matter what category we are in life, whether it's the Bill Gates of the world to a taxi driver, a custodian at a school, you got to treat everybody with the same level of respect. Of course, you can demur to somebody's title, but the most helpful people that I've found are the people who maybe are overlooked by others. And if you're willing to treat everybody with respect, they will open doors for you, literally. Another thing I like to do is surround myself with people who can actually do things better than I can do. So getting talent around you is key to success. In Rotary, for sure, because you want to have a great board and a great group of people, committees that are helping you succeed as a leader in the organization, and also certainly in business. I am not fooled by thinking that I can do everything better than anyone else. I know that there are people, lots of people, who do things that I can't even come close to. It's those kind of people you want to have around you for sure. Another thing that some leaders don't like to hear is critique. And I completely disagree with that. I want to be critiqued. I want people to say, Dave, you screwed up. Why did you do that? You really messed up. And when they do that, take that as a gift. That is somebody who's sharing something with you that if they hit it, you might not notice it. You might not realize how badly you've been performing. So by all means, let others critique and also share their ideas on how to improve, how to build the organization. So now people do screw up. There's no question about it that my workers, the people in my office, including myself, do screw up. It's when I screw up, you also have to be honest about it. You have to recognize it. Don't beat yourself up. Learn from your lessons and go on. When other people screw up and you've got to counsel them, it's fine. Do it constructively. Most important thing, do it in private. When you are providing constructive feedback to somebody, when you're saying, hey, why did you mess up? Just cost the company $100,000 or whatever, do it in private. Because, but on the other hand, when you're praising someone, do it in public. Share that with others around them so that they see that, hey, when I do something well, I'm going to be praised by the boss. It's super important. It's a valuable tool. I like to set high goals, and also have high expectations of others. But I think it's also important to be realistic, not set the bar so high that it's unattainable. They have to be realistic, ideally measurable, and then provide feedback on that. And when people do succeed, when the company is taken to a higher level, when your organization is taken to a higher level, share in the rewards. Let everybody know that they've been part of that success. Don't just accept the success yourself. Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess a few other people helped me. No, make sure that the other people around you are the ones that receive the praise. And I think the last thought I'll leave you with today, and it has a lot to do with why I'm in the business that I am, which is creating fun, is enjoy what you're doing. If you're not enjoying the work that you're doing, do something else. I mean, really, life is too short. You got to be enjoying the work that you're doing. And there is value in just about everything that we all do. But if you're stuck in a rut, you're upset about what you're doing, change the paradigm. Think out of the box and do something that you will enjoy, because you will stick with it forever if you find something. So those are the thoughts that I had. Those are my basic philosophies in business. Open to any questions that you folks may have at this point.
Yeah, I'll ask the first question. Do you expect to be where you are today professionally?
Well, that's a great question. Not really. I mean, it's been an interesting journey. When I first got started in the business world, I did have a high expectation that I would be an owner of a company at some point. As a matter of fact, I set a goal for myself with Kinko's. I worked for Kinko's for 22 years. And I said, if I'm not an owner of the company after 10 years, then I'm going to move on and do something else. Well, I stuck with it for 22 years and never actually became an owner of the company. And so I guess, yes, in a way, I did expect to finally own my own company, but it was an interesting journey on how I got here. Kinko's certainly played a huge part of that. When I started with Kinko's, the company was very small. There was only about 60 stores nationwide. When I left the company, there was 1,200 stores, something like 35,000 employees, and I was one of the employees. It had become a much bigger, unwieldy force for me. And I really enjoy knowing everybody by name, interacting with people directly. So it just became too big. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I stepped away too soon. I certainly stepped away before the company was bought by FedEx. And so that was a somewhat tactical error on my part. But I've been happy the whole time. And so when I started becoming less than happy with Kinko's, I knew it was time to go. Thanks for that question, Evan.
Oh, thank you.
So Dave, I got a question. So what made you choose the playground business?
Thanks for that question. Also a little convoluted, to tell you the truth. So after I left Kinko's, I kind of bounced around a little bit. I did my own consulting. I helped write grants for nonprofits. I worked for a couple of nonprofit organizations, the Alzheimer's Association and Waikiki Community Center. I was in development, so I was raising funds and putting on fundraisers. It was good. It was very rewarding. The pay stunk. It was not, pay in the nonprofit industry, unless you become a CEO, which is what I had intended to do, isn't very good. I had a friend who owned the company, Pacific Recreation, and we got to talking, and he said, my partner and I, we really want to sell out. We want to get out of the business. Would you consider buying me out? I'm like, Ned, listen, I don't know anything about your business. I don't know anything about construction. Yes, I know a little bit about play because I used to be pretty good on a playground myself, but I don't know anything really about the business. So I can't buy you out. Sorry. About a year or so went by, and I was sort of in between things. And Ned called me up and said, please, listen, I lost my office manager. I need you to come down. Just, help me out for a little bit, please. I'm like, okay, all right, fine. I came into the office, started looking at his books, and the books were a mess. I mean, it was just, it was a nightmare. But as I dug into it more and got the company more and more organized on the finance side, I started to realize, wow, this is a pretty lucrative business these guys are in. So I ended up buying his partner out. It was a 50-50 partnership at the time. So Tom retired, and then about 3 years ago, I bought Ned out. So Tom unfortunately has passed away. Ned is happily retired with all of my money in Oregon right now.
Wow. Okay.
I have a comment and a question. And the first one is, when we think of mentors, sometimes we think of these big things, but Dave in my club is a mentor for me just because I pick up 1 or 2 things a year. And one of the things he told me recently was, we were talking about some Rotary Club of Waikiki stuff. And he said when he was president, he didn't like it when members just at the end of the board meeting added to. He liked getting a heads up beforehand. And that's something I had never thought about on any of the boards I'm on. I just would bring things up under new business. And it's something I think about with everything, new in an organization now, since Dave gave me that advice. So sometimes it's just learning from everybody where they're a little bit more experienced than you. And my question is, I live across from St. Louis Heights, right next to Kanevai Park, Dave, and they've been constructing this park for about 2 years and there's no playground. So I'm wondering how we can get you on that job. I don't know what their vision is.
Well, thank you for the nice comment, Nathan. And it's great to have you. I know you're teased that you're the youngest member of the club, but you're very instrumental in our club right now, running program, running our fundraiser. So, we all see that you've got a long career ahead of you in Rotary. So, but thank you for those comments. The city and county is a challenging animal when it comes to their planning and execution of parks and recreation related stuff. So I don't have to remind you all the little challenges that our past mayor Caldwell had when tried to put in a $3 million playground into Ala Moana Beach Park, and how that sort of fell flat. I would have been a big advocate for that if I was the contractor doing the work, by the way, but I wasn't invited in on that one. You know, I don't know what to tell you about that particular park, Kaniwai. There used to be playground equipment there. I did the basketball courts there, but the city and county now is purchasing the playground equipment from a Dutch company called Compan. And it's very, very expensive equipment, and it takes a long time to be manufactured and get to Hawaii. I wish I had the city and county contract for playgrounds, but it's unfortunately most of that money is going to Europe.
Yeah, the reason I joked is they tore it out a couple years ago, and now it's just sitting tore out. So it'd be nice to have something there eventually.
Well, and as you know, with the pandemic, a lot of the parks were shut down for a long time. So, but they are allowing construction. You know, by the grace of our governor, we were deemed to be essential workers. I felt really guilty about that for about 5 minutes. Because we have never stopped. As a matter of fact, you know, it's crazy busy right now. With the schools being shut down, now they're finally reopening. And then of course, parks and so on. Everybody thought it was the perfect time to upgrade the park, upgrade the playground, upgrade the school. And so we've been super busy, but I do work at city and county every chance I get, but unfortunately, I'm not putting in their new playgrounds.
So we have time for one more question, and then we'll kind of do a little bit of a Toastmasters thing. It'll be table topics. I'll explain it all. There's no grades. You all pass. But anyone else that has questions?
I'll ask a question. Hey, Dave, I was kind of jumping on, you were discussing you knew you weren't happy, so you knew it was time to leave, but at the same time, not sure if you left at the most appropriate time. So I guess as you were going through consulting and your grant writing, you're looking for that passion. So how did you, finally find it? And what is kind of your tips on really knowing when it's time to walk away?
Well, I wish I could say that I left at the right time, but if you recall, I set that goal of 10 years I want to be an owner, and I stayed another 12 years. So I definitely did not leave at the time I knew I was unhappy. I stuck with it for a lot longer than I probably should have. I think, and one thing that I do is I try to at least annually or regularly self-evaluate. Take a holistic look at my whole life. Am I happy about my personal relationships? Am I happy about where I am financially? What about my work? Am I motivated at work? Or am I starting to slip? And as I evaluate that, and if there are shifts that need to be made, then try to at least, maybe don't do them immediately, but at least look at the options. What could I do differently that would improve my happiness? That's kind of what I've managed to do throughout life. And I would certainly encourage everyone to self-assess on occasion. Take a big picture look at what's happening. And then if you have the time and the gumption, drill down into the various aspects. And don't be afraid of change. Let me just say one more thing, and that's that I've never given up on the passion of community involvement. And so when Charlie Williams, the partner of Kinko's at the time, infused that in me and said, go out and join organizations. I took that to heart, and I've managed to still do that. So I still serve on nonprofit boards. I still look at grants and help write grants, not just Rotary, but for other organizations. And gosh, I love that work. I just love giving back and seeing that organizations can succeed. Those are just the things that fuel me in life. So I hope I always do that. If I ever retire from work, then I would certainly want to be a full-time volunteer somewhere, and maybe lots of places.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave, for sharing a lot of insights. I think that for a lot of us, even me, you're kind of searching for answers, and a lot of times you see someone up there, and I think what Rotary provides is a great opportunity for us to connect. And that's where I think for a lot of us as younger members that it's a good chance to see that you can get there. And really, it's sort of about building that path. So I do want to say thank you to Naomi for bringing Dave in and helping to sort of bridge that gap. And I think that's what a lot of the things that Benson are doing is trying to get us where we as Rotary can get there. So sort of in that vein, what we'll be doing for the next maybe 20 minutes before we wrap up is we'll essentially do some Toastmasters roundtable table topics. So the concept is to talk extemporaneously, like Dave said previously, where I ask a question, I will just make up the questions so no one can prepare, and I will call on someone. So I'll ask it, I'll call on someone and ask it again. And you have about 1 to 2 minutes to answer it. So it's kind of like we're all in a pageant and you get to go on stage for a little bit. Don't really have too much time to answer, but that's okay. And what we'll do a little bit differently than how it works in Toastmasters is I'm going to be giving you some feedback. So right after you speak, I'll give you a little bit of feedback to help to understand some things. Obviously, the only people that will see it is everyone on the internet because it's recorded right now. But more than likely they won't see it, so it's gonna be okay.
And stop recording.
Oh, no, not that.
It's in Naomi's head, not mine. And the concept is what we'll do in terms of typically when you give good critiques, and maybe that's a question I'll ask Dave, is how to give good criticism. You're surrounded by something good, you maybe give something good, and you then finish a sandwich with a good kind of something nice and tasty. So I'll make sure I won't be very rude. I will be respectful, but really the goal is for us all to be here, including Naomi, on assessing how we are. And obviously I'm not the best at this. Dave is probably much better and Benson's probably much better, but I'll just do it for this time. So Keith, or let me ask a question. If you could do one thing in your life, what would it be? And it can be what you're currently doing. Keith?
It can or it cannot.
Oh, good.
Do one thing in your life, and it can be doing what you're currently doing, what would you do?
Oh, if I could do one thing with my life, it would be to be retired and not have to worry about money. And then that way I can actually go out and do the things that I'm really passionate about. And that includes going to things like Rotary and helping to serve the community. Those are the things that I want to do. So I don't know if retirement fits into the model of the one thing, but it certainly would give me the freedom and the ability to be able to do the things, the many, many things that I actually would like to do with my life, and to be able to be of service, to be an integral part of the community, and to socialize, which is kind of why I do fundraising right now, because I get to socialize with people. And so that's part of my job, and it's what I enjoy doing. And so that's what I really like to continue.
Okay, so typically in Toastmasters, I guess we can do it now, as when someone finishes speaking, we'll clap because Keith was
Yeah.
the first sheep to the slaughter. No, you did great, Keith. So, I do want to say that I think when you start off, that you have a concept of what you want to speak about, and I think you did a great job of putting that in the beginning. And while a lot of us, however you want to feel about Donald Trump, one of the things he does well is he does say what he's talking about and he repeats it. And when you're speaking to the public, it's very important sometimes to stick on your points or to be concise in something that is relatable. Definitely, Keith, I think that in talking about being retired, that we all relate to wanting to be there. And really the question, I think, and you answered some of it, would be, why don't you do some of the things that you are passionate about? I do think you answered it in terms of, you wanting to be social, you wanting to do community service, and obviously it's a part of your life. But the question, maybe it's an existential question a little bit more, is if it's important, how much time of your life you spend doing it? And that's, I guess, something I would say. Why don't we go to the next one? And doctor, it's a Pokii. Is that how to say it?
Yes. All right. Hit me with your question.
Okay. Is it worth being a doctor?
That is a great question, Evan. And let's dive right into that. Pros and cons. No, I'm just joking. Honestly, I think that it really depends on your passion in life, and if that's what your goals with. I think some of us know from when we're small, and other times it develops. For me, um, I had a lot of loves. I loved the business sector. I liked law. I liked medicine. But I really found that I wanted to understand the way things work, and I wanted to be the person to help to fix things and to do something and to come up with that solution. And that's what drove me. And so I don't have any regrets. I never thought I was going to end up in neurology. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. That was like my favorite. I loved anatomy class. It was all I ever wanted to do. And then when my father was diagnosed, my whole world changed. But it was one of the best things to happen to me because I found where I really should be. That's my question. That's my answer.
That's actually a really, really thorough answer. So you just passed the 1 minute mark, and I think you did a really great job of sharing some stories. And I think that for all of us, when we answer some questions or we're trying to share some things, that stories really sell. Stories are important because they sometimes will share that lesson in which you can't get across by saying, I'm the best, right? You just share a story about how you're the best, and it comes across without being disingenuous or being honest, as Dave would say. I think one of those things that maybe you could improve on, and this is something for everyone, ends up being that sometimes when you're on the spot, you either speak way too much and you blab on, or you don't speak enough. So, I would say I'd love for you to have shared a little bit more about the story with your dad and how it kind of led to being a doctor and answering the question of, is it worth being a doctor? And I think that what's difficult when you answer these questions is it's hard to kind of get back to the conclusion or answer it, but that's a good point to remember, is to come back to it. And I know that's something that I can even be better at. All right, so more for Nathan. How do you feel being the youngest member, if you are the youngest member of your Rotary Club, or being one of the younger members?
Oh, I love being the youngest member. In fact, at my work, anytime my boss hires someone younger than me, I tell them it's not allowed because it makes me feel older. So I enjoy it. I see myself as a bridge to the next generation. And one of the things about being the youngest member in the club is I get to learn from people who were presidents of the club in the 70s and the 80s. And for as long as I'm going to be a Rotarian, which I hope is my entire life, and I hope it's a long one, but we never know. I feel that that's a really cool thing in Rotary, is that is a continuum that really doesn't break, because I'm learning from people that's going to be a part of the club for 40 years from now, and hopefully 40 years from now we're going to have a next generation, and they're going to pick up where we left off, and there's going to be new challenges in the world, but hopefully clean water, some of the things I'm excited about in Rotary, are new things that we're picking up.
Awesome. I think that Nathan, you gave a great answer to the important part of being a young member and soaking in knowledge. I definitely think that for me, it's the same way that why reinvent the wheel? And if you want to learn, you can ask. And that, I think, in asking that question, it shows a lot about you, but also that for a lot of older members or older people or experienced people, as you can say, that they really want to share. Like, I think there's a surprising amount of even realtors meeting in real estate that, you would think we compete, but you just ask a couple questions and shut up, and they share way too much that they really shouldn't share. But that's something you learn, and is great. Kind of the same thing, I think. You can do a little bit more to fill out something, and maybe try to focus on maybe one story and flesh out that story with whatever the point is. Obviously this is all new to us, so it's a lot of those same concepts. I myself have to kind of remember or go down the checklist of things that I'm doing or learning or remembering when I speak. A lot of it is don't use filler words. That's kind of the big one that I try to remember. But overall, Nathan, I think you did a really great job. All right, so Laren, is that how you say it?
Yes, Laren.
Laren,
And
okay,
I
sorry
apologize.
to
Go for it.
ask you while you drive. So if it's ever too much, man, like let me know. But what convinced you to come on this meeting today?
Well, as a young member, there's not many people in Rotary that are also around this age group, young professionals, and I think it's a really important for us to keep the traditions of Rotary going. So for us, we are the future leaders of the Rotary Club, and we have to be able to figure out how we're going to able to sustain this, how we're going to be able to adapt Rotary into the digital age, as we're doing a lot now here, with COVID. We have to look on the bright side as well, as we're able to adapt the technology. So going back to my point, we need to connect as future leaders of the Rotary Club. And I know that the ones that are going to be on this meeting are the ones that are taking initiative, and those that want to be here and want to make a difference with Rotary.
Oh, well, that was an amazing answer, and especially with you, being safe driving. I do want to say that I agree with you on all points, and I think a lot of us of why we're here is because it's important, and that what we do is important. And I think a lot of us at the end of the day, we want to give back, and it's really that question of how do we get there such that we can. And I think a fair point of the digital age, that it is important, and these skills are important, and us being here and being able to hold these meetings and keeping these attentions, that while maybe by the end of the year we might be back in person, that these opportunities will help us to grow as people, and to be able to close more. So, like, for example, Nathan, if you work for Merrill Lynch, that you probably have to hold a lot more like online meetings, and having ways that you can bridge that gap of how do we kind of come across in the way that we might do it in person. I don't actually have too much feedback for you, man. I think you either was listening very well to what everyone said, or you're a really gifted public speaker, or you practice it. So I think that there's a lot that I'm excited about, and for you to come on and for Naomi to be a part of it. So I guess we have one more, time for one more. I wish I had my little online polling feature so I could say if I want to pick on Naomi or Benson. So I guess we're gonna have to pick on Naomi. If you could change one thing in your life, what would you change? If you could change one thing in your life, what would you change, Naomi?
Okay, Benson, don't laugh, okay? Okay, that's a really good question. I'm gonna do what you do, Evan. It's a really good question, and let me ponder on that. There are so many things that I'd like to change because there's so many things that I want to do. But I think one thing that I'd like to change, I'd like to have more time in my life so that I could do more. And just to be here and listen to your messages, Poki'i's message about being a doctor and being an entrepreneur, and Lauren about being the future, it just is so rewarding. It's heartfelt that we have people who want to do more in the world. And so for me, I'd like to have more time so I can spend more time with you and do more for the world, do more good through Rotary.
All right,
Okay.
Naomi, you did great, except you didn't make 1 minute.
Oh,
You know, Naomi, I think you're trying so hard to be the last person, but I agree with you. I think that for a lot of us, you know, you get to that point where you're in the grind, and the question becomes, can you do what happens next? And you want to be in control of your time. And I think that that's one of those things where you can never get time back. So my suggestion from what I've been doing for myself is really just to take that consideration of when you look at what you do every day and compare it to what you actually want to do, does the time you spend doing those things equate to what you actually want to do? And I think that's where it will help for me, that guides to get to where I want to go. Like I'm working a lot more on building the business of real estate versus being in the business of real estate, of how I can grow my business. But ultimately, you know, we're here, you only have 24 hours in the day and you have a lot of things you want to do. And that's, I think, one of those hard questions to answer. And the only answer is you have to prioritize as you can. So I guess since Jacob's on, we'll do one more, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
Just in time.
Yeah.
Just in time.
You know, Jacob, what do you like best about exercising? You like
give
that?
me a second.
No problem.
Let's start. So for me, I've never been big into exercise. It's always been, focus on my brain first. I've always been, seeing for my intelligence and kind of ignored the whole physical side of my body. And there was a time in my life where, I was working from home, wasn't doing any exercise, just being in my room all the time, self-quarantining, I guess. And realizing that I couldn't remember what I was going to say. Like my train of thought would just disappear like that. I couldn't sleep well. And I was just realizing that the lack of taking care of my physical body was affecting my mental health as well. As well as, as my happiness, my confidence, my ability to get out there and break out of my boundaries. So I think the best thing that I like about exercising is, it's I don't know, it's integrative. It's not necessarily trying to achieve one result. It's trying to find a holistic way to live my life that I can continue being who I am, which is, a very mental person, in a way that I feel more comfortable by myself. I can be more social and I can get outdoors more. So
answer.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think one of those things of when we're trying to build relationships, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, but also the fact that when you're vulnerable, that sometimes that's a bridge to connect with others. And that I think opposed to maybe, you know, what it means to man up, that sometimes that vulnerability is that chance to connect in ways that people see are real. And part of being a good speaker sometimes, and this is not to say I'm a good speaker or anything, but you know, one of the comments that I've always been given was to maybe share some of your vulnerabilities. And you know, Jacob, I think you did, you know, a really good job of not only sharing it, but kind of giving your story about how exercising has sort of changed your life. And I think we all know that, you know, you can look in the mirror and you feel better about yourself when you start working out. And that relates to a lot of things that, you know, it's your self-image, but also how it impacts everything. So, you know, I just want to relate it back to kind of the main topic and what Dave said, and I'll let Naomi, Benson, and Dave kind of finish it off. But, you know, we are young, but the sooner you can start with the end in mind and focus those efforts, the sooner you can get there. But the path to the goal, it's not always the best part of it. Sometimes it's the journey, as Dave said, that maybe you spent 12 more years, but you don't know when you're going through it. You only know after it's finished. And sometimes those moments of going through it are the impact points that help you to be a better person or to grow, and you can't shortcut success. So with that, I'll kind of pass it back to Naomi to finish up the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for sharing and practicing to do your speeches. You know, when we come to these meetings, we learn from each other. We learn about our experiences, and that will build on getting us to where we want to go. So, you know, Poki'i, when you went to the CNHA sessions and you learned about things that are outside of medicine, you're adding, and every step of the way will build on what you are today and what you're going to be in the future. And all of you for just being here and just networking, I think will help us all with our future. So Dave, thank you very much for doing this at the last minute, but sharing what your philosophy and using the 4-way test and ethics in business, that's something that as Rotarians, we should be thinking about in our daily lives and our business life. So next month, we have Terry George, who will be speaking. So for Lauren and Poki'i, you know Terry George, right? So he is the CEO of the Castle Foundation, a very large organization that does so much for the community in ways of grants and programs. And he will share his insight on running that foundation from his seat as CEO. And he was the president of the Honolulu Club too. And to be a president of Honolulu Club, wow, that's a big job just by itself. With a club of 150 members is really like running a business when you run a club like that. Okay, so Benson, you have some last words, or Dave?
Yeah, it was great to be here today, or tonight. And, you know, part of what I used to do in a previous life was to teach public speaking. And one of the things that we would teach in extemporaneous speaking was to create this really quick outline in your head. So if you're thrown a topic, that you can organize it like this really quick. And it's tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So, so you introduce your topic, you talk a little bit about it, and then you wind up just repeating, like exactly what Evan said. You know, you want to keep repeating the stuff or the point that you want to try to make, and that's a great thing. And then I just want to talk about young people in Rotary. And Rotary is kind of an older group of people. I think our mid-range is probably, I don't know, late 50s or 60s. But my granddaughter is 22 years old. She's the youngest member of our club. Keith here is going to be the incoming president-elect. And Marissa, who's 22, she's our sergeant at arms, because she's like a state championship wrestler and MMA fighter is going to mess with her, even though she's small and she's young. But she sees that there's a future for her in Rotary, not just in her professional development. She's an insurance agent, but she sees it really as part of her growth and maturity as a person, and somebody that's taken more seriously, because at her age nobody really takes her seriously until she's around people in Rotary. Then everybody looks at her like, wow, if you're around these guys, then I'm gonna start taking you seriously, because you got to have some stuff up here to really understand that that so much happens in our life based on association and who you're associated with. So it's really cool, man, to see everybody come on. And Dave, to hear your story, I mean, we could talk all night just about business stories, because there's a long road on that one. So appreciate everybody's time and being here tonight, because it helps all of us, just the time that we spend here exchanging ideas. So thanks.
May I get a last word in here, Benson?
Yes, Dave.
Naomi, thank you again for inviting me here. I mean, wow, this is just so exciting to see young people like all of you being the future of Rotary. So, I got a lot out of this today. The final thought I will leave you with is that when you are part of an organization, whether it's Rotary or another, it's not what you're getting out of it, it's what you're putting into it. That's the true sign. That's going to be the measurement of your success in that organization. So we hope you all will put a lot more into Rotary. I know you will. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Evan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for coming on tonight, everybody.
Right.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye, Naomi. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, good job. Night. Yeah, you can multitask.
I know. I guess I'm just, I apologize. I was late. I had a meeting, and then I'm actually driving. I don't know if you know Alamoana Dental, but they're open till 7 p.m. So, or 8 p.m. I think. So I have a dentist appointment now. So busy day. And I was like, you know what? I got this invite today. I want to make sure that I'm supporting Rotary and making sure that I'm able to connect with everyone across the chapters as well. So thank you so much for putting on this event, and I'm looking forward to having Terry for next week as well.
Next month, yep. Thank you.
Next month, sorry. Bye.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You
Appreciate
too.
it.
Bye-bye.